I first got involved with Chinese language learning Chinese language as a teenager. I was also a soldier at the time. And I happened to find myself in a place on the planet that was not an English-speaking area, nor was it a Chinese-speaking area, but there were Chinese people there. And I found two native-speaking tutors. One, turned out, was from Tianjin. The other one was from Hubei. So I got a fairly quick introduction to the concept of native speaker, how it turned out in reality. My big lesson came maybe after 3 or 4 weeks of learning Chinese, where I wanted to show one of my teachers a new book, and I presented it to him and said, 这本书很难. And he looked at me, no, he said, 这是哪本书是难言吃的? And that kind of confused me. But finally I figured it out that the N and L was a problem between the two tutors. And that solved a lot of problems, and things sort of picked up after that, I guess. But I guess the idea of there was such a wide variation in Mandarin that as a non-native speaker, you felt a certain probably unjustified freedom. After I got out of the military, I went into the university, and I was an economics major. But because I was interested in Chinese, I took Chinese classes, and I found out that the Chinese classes primarily wanted me to recognize Hanzi, recognize characters. So I had, during a period of time, fairly much memorized the Fen 5000 dictionary. So I knew a lot of Hanzi, relatively speaking. So basically, an undergraduate, I was a star Chinese student, even though I wasn't learning much Chinese. Fact is, my Chinese was so good, they put me into third year Japanese because I recognized Hanzi. So it was kind of strange, but I didn't know it was strange. I just thought the world was kind of wacko. I was an economics major, heading toward being a lawyer, going to law school. And then I found out that I didn't like lawyers. So I took an offer through Cornell University and the Ford Foundation grant to study at Cornell, and I chose to study Chinese literature because I recognized a lot of characters. So I got there, I started studying Chinese literature, and I started realizing that I had the problem. I could recognize characters, but I couldn't read Chinese. So that was a big challenge, and I thought a lot about the difference between what I was doing and what reading was. But I worked my way through. I got a degree at Cornell in Chinese literature. I did my PhD on the literature of the South, which I was very interested in, still am. I went on to end up as an assistant professor or lecturer kind of position at Penn, University of Pennsylvania, then on to Cornell, and on to Ohio State. And when I got to Ohio State, I was going to stay here for a year and then go out and get a real job. But I just realized I had gotten my little pen that said that I had been here. I've been here for 35 years, so I guess I forgot to get a job. Anyway, as a lecturer, I came as a lecturer of literature, and I was focusing on literary criticism. That's what I had spent a lot of time dealing with as a graduate student. Then they asked me to teach some Chinese language courses, and then it dawned on me that, well, I better start learning Chinese really seriously. But I didn't really know what that was, and I had to learn what that would mean to actually learn Chinese seriously. As a Chinese language teacher here, I was pushing and encouraging proficiency, and I was on a lot of national committees and striving to clarify and encourage people to use proficiency testing as a metric for the field. I happened to spend a year at National Foreign Language Center in Washington, D.C., and during that period of time, I read a lot of second language acquisition literature, and I learned a lot. It was interesting, but I think I finally concluded that second language acquisition wasn't going to help us too much in getting Americans to learn Chinese, learning to communicate in Chinese language. I realized that if you can define Chinese language in any way you want to, but actually when you say communicate in the language, that's a totally different thing, because communication either happens or it doesn't happen. It's observable, or its failure is observable. So we continued working on that way, and along the line at Ohio State as an assistant professor, or I don't know, maybe as associate by that time, I'm not sure. I said we did a Chinese language internship program where we were trying to get American students ready to function in a Chinese workplace. And it was there that it became very clear to me that proficiency as an assessment was a failure in terms of predicting success in actually interacting or doing something in the language. And that, I think, was the major understanding of that I had gained from all that experience, that we need to have a better way to think about Chinese language teaching in the United States. And we need a better idea of assessment than the accepted idea of proficiency that came through government language training and then into the national organizations such as ACTFL.